Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. I'm really excited to bring you today's video. If you enjoy my content, don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications. Let's get started. In mid-2002, William Stamfel, an experienced American mountaineer, embarked on a quiet yet determined journey into the heart of South America. His goal was to summit Huascarán, the highest peak in the Andes and one of the most perilous climbs in the mountaineering world. At 58 years old, Stamfel appeared ready for the challenge, equipped with physical endurance, mountaineering knowledge, and unwavering resolve. Alongside two fellow experienced climbers, he arrived in Peru, where the team met with local guides and carefully analyzed weather data before the climb. Huascarán, standing at 6,768 meters, is not only the highest peak in Peru but also the tallest mountain in the tropical world. Its ascent is notoriously dangerous, not just due to technical climbing difficulties, but because of unpredictable weather, deep crevasses, and the severe effects of high altitude. For many climbers, Huascarán tests not only physical limits, but psychological ones as well. Stamfel and his team plan to ascend via the classic route of Huascarán Sur, the south summit. During their preparations, they conducted acclimatization climbs to adjust to the low oxygen levels. They transported gear between camps, spent nights in sub-zero temperatures, and made their way through narrow ice corridors and snow-laden ridges during the day. Their silent efforts were a sign of their respect for the mountain. This was not a competition. It was a deeply personal journey and a complex relationship with nature. For them, reaching the summit symbolized more than success. It was a reflection on the fragility of life, the limits of human endurance, and the overwhelming power of nature. But the silence of the mountain is often a warning. Huascarán offers mesmerizing beauty, but it also harbors deadly threats. As William Stamfel and his team walked the fine line between wonder and danger, they were unknowingly approaching disaster. In July 2002, Stamfel and his climbing partners had reached nearly 6,000 meters, the final stretch toward the summit. After days of battling glaciers, steep passes, and snow-covered ridges, they were nearing their goal. Weather forecasts appeared relatively calm, but in the Andes, conditions can change drastically within hours, an unpredictable trait of the region. While resting at a pass during their ascent, an unusual silence fell over the area. Then came a deep rumbling sound from the upper slopes of the mountain, a sound only seasoned climbers would recognize, the telltale crack that signals an avalanche. Within seconds, hundreds of tons of snow and ice cascaded down the mountainside at terrifying speed. The climbers reacted instinctively. Some froze, others shifted position. But there was little they could do against the sheer force of the avalanche. It consumed everything in its path. Stamfel and his team were caught directly in its deadly center. When the avalanche settled, the ensuing silence spoke volumes. The following morning, no communication came from William Stamfel or his team. Local search and rescue teams in Peru were alerted immediately. High-altitude rescue units were deployed to the area, but Huascarán's geology, combined with freshly fallen snow, made it nearly impossible to pinpoint the exact location of the avalanche. In the initial days, searches began with helicopter support. Guided by satellite images, drones, and local knowledge, the rescuers continued their efforts. Yet the avalanche site, steep slopes exceeding 45 degrees, hidden crevasses, and heavy fog, became increasingly inaccessible. Throughout that summer, teams attempted multiple ascents. Clues were found in some locations, but no bodies were recovered. Days turned into weeks, weeks into months. When official search operations were eventually suspended, all that remained were unanswered questions. William Stamfel and his teammates had vanished into the silence of Huascarán. Losses like these are not uncommon in the mountaineering world, but the impact of this particular tragedy ran deeper. The fact that a mountaineer as experienced as Stamfel was overtaken by such a force underscored the unpredictable power of nature. This tragedy served as a haunting reminder. The same mountains that offer breathtaking majesty also conceal fatal risks. From that moment on, the three climbers entombed beneath Huascarán's ice would not merely be considered missing. They would become memories embedded in the heart of the mountain itself. For over 2 decades, Huascarán, the highest peak in the Andes, had remained buried in silence. In 2024, the world was forced to confront a new reality. The effects of global warming, which scientists had been warning about for decades, were now visibly apparent even at the highest summits of the Andes. Glaciers in tropical mountainous regions in particular began to melt dramatically as temperatures increased. The thick layers of ice on Huascarán's slopes were no exception. Geologists and climate researchers had been tracking the retreat of glaciers in the region, using satellite images and field observations. In July 2024, a significant melt was observed at a previously completely ice-covered area at 5,200 meters on Huascarán. This event was noteworthy not only because of its climatic implications, but also because it uncovered a long-buried tragedy from the past. On July 5, 2024, a local mountain guide working in the area noticed human remains partially exposed by the melting glacier. When authorities were notified and teams arrived at the scene, they struggled to believe the condition of the body emerging from beneath the snow and ice. The corpse was almost perfectly preserved. The clothes, climbing gear, and even the passport and driver's license in the wallet were still legible. Identification was swift. The body belonged to William Stampfel, one of the climbers who had gone missing in 2002 after being caught in an avalanche on Huascarán. The near-perfect preservation of Stampfel's body became a rare case in mountaineering history. Trapped beneath impermeable glacier layers in sub-zero temperatures, the body had been sealed in time, almost as if it had been preserved against the passage of time. The discovery held great significance, not only for his family and friends, but also for the mountaineering community. The recovery of a climber lost decades ago, now exposed by the effects of changing climate, demonstrated how long mountains could keep their secrets hidden. This revelation, brought forth by the retreating glaciers, carried profound implications both scientifically and humanistically. For 22 years, William Stampfel had remained in silent waiting atop one of the world's highest points. On that day, it wasn't just the body of a mountaineer that was uncovered. It was the collective witness of climate change, time, and nature. July 5, 2024, the body found at 5,200 meters on Huascarán was not just that of a missing climber. It also carried with it a long unanswered question. What had happened to William Stampfel? After the body was found, mountain rescue teams carefully brought it down from the region. Due to the harsh weather conditions, the operation took several days. The body was found in its last known position, wearing a helmet, jacket, climbing pants, and mountaineering boots. The body remained preserved, its expression frozen in a moment in time. One of the most striking details was the passport and driver's license found in the inner pocket of his jacket. Protected from moisture and external elements, the documents were nearly flawless, and the information legible. The document confirmed the identity of the body as that of American mountaineer William Stampfel, born in 1944. This not only identified the body, but also allowed for the reopening of search records related to Stampfel. Peruvian authorities announced that the body would be reported to U.S. officials, and efforts to contact his family would commence. DNA testing procedures were initiated. Comparisons with samples from Stampfel's living relatives confirmed the identity with 100% certainty. For scientists, this event was not just a forensic case, but also an extraordinary environmental and biological phenomenon. The extreme conditions on Huascarán had kept the body and its belongings remarkably well preserved. The sudden drop in body temperature and the airtight glacier environment had essentially frozen time, providing a rare example of nature's own laboratory in action. The body was later transported to the Lima Forensic Center in Peru. Detailed examinations revealed that Stampfel likely did not sustain traumatic injuries during the avalanche, but most probably died from suffocation or hypothermia after being buried under the snow. After 22 years of waiting, the Stampfel family was faced with a painful but conclusive ending. Their loved one, who had disappeared into an infinite unknown in 2002, was now part of a tangible reality. For them, this was the closure of a chapter that had remained open during their mourning process. Diplomatic procedures for the transfer of William Stamfell's remains to America were initiated. His family announced plans to hold a memorial service to honor his memory. The body that emerged from the heart of Huascarán would be remembered not only as a lost soul, but as a symbol of the silent and honorable battle against nature. The avalanche. Disaster on Huascarán in 2002 was not just a mountaineering tragedy, but also the beginning of incomplete stories. William Stamfell and two of his climbing companions disappeared without a trace that year in the Andes. However, the rescue teams that reached the area immediately after the avalanche could only recover one body. Unlike Stamfell, this climber had been found and delivered to his family in a shorter time. He was the youngest and least experienced member of the group. The cause of death was clear. He had been swept away by the avalanche and buried under a thick layer of snow. Over the years, not only Stamfell's family but also the relatives of the third climber lived in uncertainty. For 22 years there was no trace or sign of him. No physical evidence had ever emerged. Helicopter scans conducted during the early years of the search and hikes led by local guides had failed to determine the direction in which the snow mass from the avalanche had been carried. The harsh terrain of Huascarán and its inaccessible areas made such disappearances frequent. The discovery of Stamfell's body brought new hope. Perhaps the third climber was hidden beneath the same ice layers. However, by 2024, no trace of him had been found. Only speculations remained. Perhaps his body had been carried to a much lower point, or perhaps it was trapped deep within the glaciers. The answers that the mountain provided were still lacking. For the mountaineering community, these kinds of stories serve as a reminder of the romantic yet brutally unforgiving nature of mountains. Every disappearance is the price of a summit. Every unrescued body is a story lost in the silence of nature. The discovery of Stamfell's body was a partial disruption of this silence, but there were still missing pieces. The family of the third missing climber still places a small commemorative plaque at the foot of Huascarán every year. This stone, with the climber's name and the date of the expedition engraved, has grown moss over time, but the effort to keep the memories of the climbers alive has never wavered, because mountains do not always return those who are lost. Some are kept by them forever. In July 2024, news from Peru's Huascarán mountain carried an answer long awaited in a home in California. William Stamfell's body had emerged from the silence of the past 22 years later, with the physical traces of a history long buried. Upon hearing the news, his family experienced both profound grief and a sense of closure. For them, William had never truly been lost. He had simply been somewhere unknown. After official procedures, Stamfell's body was brought to the United States. His family held a simple but meaningful funeral ceremony, fitting for his passion for the mountains. Not only family and close friends attended the ceremony, but many from the mountaineering community as well. The two other climbers who had ascended with him and lost their lives were also remembered. At the ceremony, photographs from Stamfell's last climb, map excerpts, and some of the gear used together were displayed. This was not just a farewell ceremony, it was a tribute to a life dedicated to mountaineering. This ceremony was dedicated not only to Stamfell, but to all the mountaineers who had lost their lives in the mountains. Their stories were not just about the desire to reach the summit, but about a philosophy of life intertwined with nature. The near-perfect preservation of Stamfell's body showed that the ice had not only protected him, but had also transformed him into a time capsule. His clothes, identification documents, and even a few personal items formed a silent bridge between the past and the present. After the funeral, Stamfell's family established a scholarship fund to honor his memory. This scholarship would support young mountaineers in receiving safe climbing training and fostering a responsible relationship with nature. The tragedy on Huascarán had not only involved a loss, but it also led to the transmission of knowledge, awareness, and memories to future generations. William Stamfell's story once again showed that mountains speak not only through their peaks, but also through the ones who have been lost. And the silent witness buried under the snows of Huascarán had finally spoken. Nature does not always provide an answer immediately, but when the time comes, it reminds us of what belongs to it.